Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Marianne Santos. There we go. My name is Marianne Santos, and I am a Learning Management System Specialist from the Division of IT, and this is my colleague, Christian. We're both Learning Management System Specialists, so we are all things Elms-Canvas. And we also have our information on the screen there. We both have the same jobs. I'm also work a lot with TLTC with webinars and consultations. So I also have a link there if you need one-on-one support on anything Elms-Canvas as well. And Christian does more of like the technical things with Canvas. Today we're going to be talking about what is Elms-Canvas, how to access Elms-Canvas, some top 5 things to know. We only have like an hour. There's a lot of things to learn about it, but we wanted to give you at least the top 5 things we want to talk about. We'll go more in a deeper dive on the gradebook and some resources that may be helpful for you. Before we go in, we just wanted to just get an idea of your experience with Elms-Canvas. For those of you who are in the room, you can just do 1 for I'm new to Elms-Canvas, 2, I've used it as a student only, or 3, I've used it in an instructional role before, which is like a TA or instructor. And for those who are in Zoom, you could type it in the chat, just so we have an idea. 1, 2, or 3. I see a lot of 2s, some 1s, and some 3s. Awesome. Thank you. So let's first talk about Elms-Canvas. First, Elms. Elms is short for Enterprise Learning Management System. University of Maryland has a learning management system, and it may be different platforms. No matter what platform it is, we call it Elms. And in the past, we've had Blackboard, WebCT, but currently our current platform is Canvas. So sometimes you might hear Elms, sometimes you might hear Elms-Canvas. They're synonymous, they're the same thing. And for now, we look like we're going to be sticking with Canvas for a while. And another one to note is Instructure. Instructure is the company that owns Canvas. So some of the information that you might see or guides on how to use Canvas may say Instructure, may say Canvas, or Elms-Canvas. So just so you know, they're all the same thing. To access Elms, the short URL is elms.umd.edu. You will just need to sign in with your directory ID and password. And we want to make sure that when you go into it, you would go to, it will take you straight to your dashboard. We'll show you all your courses. But the #1 place to make sure you know on the left-hand side is a red bar called the Global Navigation. That is the navigation you're going to see no matter where you are in Canvas. And one of the buttons says Courses. When you go to it, this is just an animation that just plays over and over. There is a link that says All Courses. Then it will show you all the courses that you're in, no matter what role you are. But so that you know which ones you are a TA in, on the right-hand side, it will tell you what your role is. So you'll say Enrolled STA. If you notice that you don't see a course that you're supposed to be in, or you don't have the right enrollment, make sure you contact HR, because some of you, as depending how much if your information has gone through or not, you will need to contact HR to make sure that you are included in that course. And for support, there are many different places you can access on Canvas for support. The first one in the global navigation is the question mark. There are several links that you can access for a hotline for students or for faculty, and you could chat with someone from Canvas support. On the right-hand side, at the very top, there is a 24/7 Canvas chat support button. And then below that, there is a drop-down that says how to use UMD Canvas, and it will take you to 2 types of courses if you want to look at it as a student or if you want to look at it as a faculty or instructor. Then at the bottom right is a question mark. So we have many different places depending where you are. But no matter what, the question mark on the right-hand side at the bottom will be anywhere you are in Canvas. This one is my favorite one because no matter where you are, it will give you instructions and guides for that part of Canvas. So for example, if you are in an announcement, it's going to give you guides on how to do an announcement. If you're in an assignment, it will give you guides on how to use assignments and so on. And I'm going to just show here, and then I'll go into the demonstration. The top 5 things we want you to know, especially for as a TA, and the tools that you're going to be using the most are announcements, which is where you can alert students with important information and due dates and reminders. Assignments and grading, they come hand to hand. Most of the time, your work will be creating assignments, editing assignments, and grading. I put a little asterisk here because Christian will go deeper into specifically more about how you will be working with assignments and grading. Another important one is student view. This is really helpful, so when you are trying to make sure that the students have access to the pages, the assignments, making sure it's published, student view is helpful because then you can see what the students see, how it will look like for them, and you can even test out some of the things. If you create an assignment, you can pretend to be a fake student and actually go through whatever you have on there so that you know what the experience will be like for the students in the course. Just keep in mind, anytime you have a tool that's not native or part of Canvas, Student View won't work because it's looking for a real student. Student View is a fake student, so for example, if you're using, thinking of a tool just through my mind. If you're using Lucid, which is an external tool that works with Canvas, you won't be able to see it in Student View because it's looking for a real account. Lastly, there are many tools available, but the most popular ones you'll be probably working with is either Design Plus, which is how the look of your page will look like, Panopto, which is where you will have all your recordings and videos. Turnitin is when students submit some kind of a online paper, and then it will do a plagiarism check. And then Lockdown Browser is often used, especially when you're having quizzes. I'm gonna go into my course here. Forgot. There we go. Did. There we go. Okay. So I'm already this one. I'm already signed in to Canvas, so this is what my dashboard will look like. Yours will look a little different depending on what courses that are published here. Your dashboard are the list of courses that you have starred that you want to easily access. If you want to change the order, you can always click and rearrange it. So it's easier for you. If you know you're going to look at a specific course a lot and you want it at the top, you can drag it to it. On the left-hand side, I did show this is where you will find all of your courses. So I'm going to just go here. I have several on here that I'm a teacher in, and there's several on here, but you'll see anytime there's a star, that's what's going to show up on my dashboard. Like for this sandbox, I don't need it there, so I just unstar it just so it will be out of my way. So that's where you can access all of your courses, and you can see what you're enrolled in. I'm going to come back to my dashboard to my sample course. Anytime you go into a course, next to your global navigation is called the course navigation. This is going to look a little different depending on how you organize it. Course navigation will typically give you all of where you can access all your announcements, modules, pages, quizzes, discussions, and so on. And the order may be different depending on how you organize it. And I'll show that a little bit later. The first one I'm going to show is announcements. Announcements is pretty much like a basic page, kind of a discussion, because it works like a discussion. I just have a sample one here that I created here where I just created a quick message and some reminders for my students, and I included a little image on here. But I'm going to show here by creating an announcement, I will just click plus announcement, and it's going to open in a new page for me. Pretty much anytime you're creating a page, an assignment, an announcement, it has the same box or text boxes, and it's called the RCE, also known as the Rich Content Editor. So if you hear a lot of documentation that says RCE or Rich Content Editor, it is really a text box, and it has different tools that you can use to put information in. You'll always have to put in a title, And then the box below is where you'll put your information. And here is all the tools that you have in order to edit and format how you want your pages and announcements to look. Excuse me. While in here, another thing to point out is modules. Your professor might already have this already laid out where they want to organize all of the content and all the assignments in modules. Think of modules as folders, and then you have a different folder for different things. There are different ways to organize it. I'm just showing here an example one where some professors might go for week 1, week 2, or they might go by units, unit 1, unit 2. Within each module, you can organize as well the types of content you want in here. So I have a sample assignment for them, a practice page. This is just me testing some things out, so you might see some random information on here. But anything in here is organized the way I want my students to access it. Also, while we are in here, you'll see these green check marks. The green check at the top shows that it is viewable for all your students to see. Within that module, you'll have individual green check marks or a no symbol, meaning students can see it or students cannot see it. Like, I'm not ready for my syllabus for them to view yet. That's why it has this little symbol here. And another way to look at it is on the top right is view as student. Sorry, I think there's some questions on here. Okay. There were questions from earlier. I see it now. So I'm just going to show you a quick demonstration while I'm in here is view as students. So you'll notice I have this syllabus page here that is not published, and update assignment is not. So if I click view as student, now I could see it's more simplified course navigation, and I have those 2 pages that were not published. It's not viewable for them here. So if you, oftentimes I always put things in there, but I forget to publish it. So the students will be like, hey, it's not there. You said it's there, but it's not there. So this is what I do. I would go to student view to make sure that what I want them to see is viewable. Anytime you do some kind of work to test it out, you can complete that. And if you want to redo it, there's a button at the bottom that says reset student. So you can clear it and then try it again. And then whenever you want to get out of it, you'll just click leave student view. The next one are the next links that you'll be looking at the most are pages, assignments, quizzes, and discussions. So pages is pretty much a page. It's just content that your students can view, and that's pretty much it. You're just giving information. You're not necessarily asking for information back. Assignments is the other one, where you would have them submit something to you. There are 3 kinds: assignments, quizzes, and discussions. And you'll find all of them under assignments. No matter what kind of assignment you created, it could be a quiz, which is where you'll see a rocket ship. If it's a regular assignment, it's an icon with a paper and pencil. And I believe I have a discussion somewhere on here, but it will look like speech bubbles. Whenever you need to create a quiz, you will go to quizzes. If you need to create discussions, you'll go to discussions. But no matter what, you will always find all of them under assignments, and it's organized by weights that Christian will talk more about. So I've talked about student view. And then some tools, I'm going to show more about that because there are a lot of information just for those specific tools, and I'll show a guide later on for that. And I will hand it to Christian, who will talk more about grading and gradebook. Yeah.
Thanks, Marianne. Check 1, 2. All right, there we go. All right, thank you, everyone. Also, apologies, I know that this is the presentation, I think, immediately prior to lunch. So this is also known as the most difficult time period of the day. So thank you so much for your attention. As Marianne mentioned, I'm going to be going over some things that I find really useful for understanding how Canvas calculates the gradebook and how everything works, because this is probably going to be like the bread and butter of most of the work that you will be doing as TAs. So as you can see here, I have a list of what I'd like to accomplish with you, and so we are going to go over how to create those assignments and other gradable tasks that students can go over that Marianne mentioned. I'm going to talk about weighted assignments, so exactly how oftentimes Canvas is utilized in order to match a syllabus. We're also going to talk about how to make sure, as Marianne mentioned, utilizing the student view to ensure that students are capable of seeing the work that you think they should be able to see. I'll show you some little tips and tricks on how to quickly and easily understand how to look at the gradebook and like making sure you are seeing everything that you should be seeing, and also to make your work quicker. We're also going to be going over the tools inside of Canvas Gradebook to assist in giving feedback to the students. Those two things are called SpeedGrader and rubrics. And then I'm going to briefly cover Turnitin, which probably based on your earlier answers, you're all quite familiar with in terms of what it is. And then finally, going over precisely how Gradebook calculates all this information, because it's also one of those things where it's just like, well, if you enter information incorrectly, you'll garbage in, garbage out, you'll get an incorrect setting, get an incorrect grade for a student, which could be rather disastrous. We don't want that to occur. So with all that in mind, I'm going to go to my test course, and I'm going to first start by showing you guys how to create a graded assignment, what exactly that looks like. Oftentimes, I don't think you will necessarily be asked to do this whole cloth. I doubt many of your professors that you're going to work with are going to be like, hey, can you make this assignment? But they might be. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go into my course, and I'm going to start by making a completely basic assignment. So we're going to go to assignments, and then from here, I'm going to click on plus assignment. Now, this is where a lot of information is going to be thrown at you, very similar to when Marianne made an announcement earlier. This is pretty much the case for practically everything that you're going to do inside of Canvas, where you'll be greeted with this set of information, where you need to give it a title and then a description. We're simply going to say that this is the TA test assignment, and then we are not going to give this a description because you know what goes here. This is where you will give instructions, this is where you will give expectations, all that stuff. Now, next important bit is how many points this is going to be worth. So there are cases where you probably will need to go in and edit information, or maybe you'll have to change stuff. This is where you will be able to see all this information at the same time. So we're just going to say that this is going to be worth 100 points. And we'll cover exactly why that's so important when we get to weighted assignments and how things are calculated and all that stuff. But for right now, we're just going to say that this is 100 points. Assignment group. So what exactly is an assignment group? Because one of the things that you will learn as you get more and more involved in Canvas is that there are a lot of terms and you're just like, what exactly does this mean? What is this? So an assignment group, and I'm going to re-emphasize this in just a moment, an assignment group is essentially a category of assignments that you can then tell the course how much a percentage of that assignment is going to be calculated to the final grade. So again, just to belabor the point, this is essentially you being able to categorize and say, hey, I want this particular assignment to be part of, let's say, Module 2. And Module 2 is worth 20% of the overall grade of a course. And you might be like, well, there's no Module 2 here, Christian. What are we going to do? Well, from here, you can also create assignment groups, and we could say, okay, so this is supposed to be part of Module 2, and add it to that group. And then now this is going to be funneled into that set of adding up to the final grade. So we'll get back to Module 2 in just a moment. Display grade as, and so here you can see the various options that you have with regards to how an assignment can be handled. Oftentimes, I would say you're going to fall into one of two categories. Either you're going to display points or you're going to display incomplete or complete. Oftentimes, you'll see discussion boards opt into utilizing incomplete, not complete, because it'll be like, hey, make sure you do your introductory post in week 1. And that's oftentimes an incomplete, not complete. It's not supposed to be a massively game-changing grade thing. Points, often the default. So like 10% is going to be complete and complete. The rest, probably going to be points. The rest, these other options are available, but I think you'll probably see that that's oftentimes something used more in the K-12 sphere versus higher ed. Okay, now, this is another important point, submission type. Now, one of the things you'll note is that it defaults to online, but you can see there's a bunch of other solutions you have here. One of which is on paper, external tool, no submission. Now, I would imagine more often than not, your classes are going to fall into one of two buckets. You're either going to be online or you're going to be on paper, and people are supposed to hand you a physical thing. But for today, we're going to talk about online and what exactly you can allow students to do when you give them the online submission type. So you'll see here we have text entry, 3 other things you'll probably never use, and then file uploads. Text entry gives students the opportunity to enter their answers in a rich content editor, and that is one way that they can opt to do that. Now, I would encourage you probably never to really select that option for one primary reason. If you give students the opportunity to utilize text entry as their method of submission, that actually can't be run through Turnitin. So it is oftentimes used by students as a way to cleverly avoid having a paper run through Turnitin. I'm going to mention a few ways that students try to avoid Turnitin, but that's one of them. So a lot of times you probably don't want to have this turned on. This is another one of those things where it's just like if your professor has this turned on because they were just like, oh, just give them options. It's just like, I don't know about that. Might want to force them into only doing file uploads, because file uploads is the way Turnitin is actually capable of running a paper through its system to ensure that originality is actually intact. So another thing that I want to mention that's actually kind of neat is you can also restrict the type of file uploads that get put here. So I'm looking around, I see a bunch of Macs, so I don't think that this is too big of an issue for people that you can actually open Pages documents. I'm a PC user, so whenever I get Pages sent to me, it's always a nightmare. Marianne, I'm looking at you too. Anyway, so if you wanted to, you can make sure that you restrict like file uploads here. Another good example of this is if you were expecting a PowerPoint, you could be like .ppt or .pptx, to make sure that they only send you PowerPoints and not some other random thing that you were not expecting. So just know that you guys have this option. You have the ability to handle this, and you're good to go. Submission attempts. Now, oftentimes, as you can see, it defaults to unlimited. There's really no reason to change this from unlimited for 2 reasons. One, it saves you time, because you get to see the timestamp of when a student submits their work. So if you're just like, the cutoff for this is August 31st at midnight. So long as a student submits their work before that point, you can be confident that like, okay, the last thing they submitted is most likely the thing that I'm supposed to be grading. Because let's say, for example, you're just like, okay, I'm gonna switch this from submission attempts to limited and then set it to 1. Well, congratulations. Now, instead of that student being able to correct that mistake themselves on Sunday, they probably are going to send you an incredibly panicked email saying, I can't submit the work that I tried to do. I accidentally uploaded the wrong thing. They can't retract submissions. So I would highly, 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 highly encourage you to leave it unlimited. Group assignments. So this is where you are able to create groups and then also assign those groups specific tasks. This is definitely one of the more nuanced ways you can handle things inside of Canvas. If you are going to be utilizing group work, this is the method that you would typically use. So you can see here, there's even an option to just make these groups later. We don't necessarily cover groups today, but if you have questions about groups, we can cover that at a later point. So moving on. You'll also see that this is the location that you're able to select for peer review for work. So if you notice, like, okay, this is supposed to be an assignment that is supposed to be like, okay, students are going to send work to each other, they're gonna give feedback to each other. This is the location that you're capable of doing that. This is really important because the assignment page that you're looking on, the assignment creation page, is also the assignment edit page. So if you go ahead, like let's say I go ahead and I save and publish this. I don't want to use it as a group assignment. Save and publish this, and I'm just like, oh wait, there were a few other things I needed to do for this assignment, or I have to go back and mess with something. You could always go back and click on the edit page, and then at that point you'll be able to do anything else, which is great because I also want to handle assignment access. So this is if you've used Canvas before, this is probably going to look new for you because normally this used to just be a box inside of the page itself. It's the same thing, it just looks a little bit different. It has this little bump out, that's pretty much all it does. The most important thing I'll say in terms of this particular page is that this is how you would be able to give individual accommodations or individual exceptions to particular students. So let's say, for example, Natalie, I know, has an exception. They require additional time for their work. So I could say I can select Natalie and then give her a specific date and time that she's capable of submitting the work. And then you'll notice that, like, okay, I'm just doing this for Natalie. How do I make sure I handle everyone else? It still has like the original time. You would go to this plus add button, and then you'll have the option to do everyone else. It will default to, well, it would default to everyone else. You noticed it earlier. And from there, you could then say, like, okay, this is their due dates for this particular assignment, and then you would go through that. Yes, please.
You set it to everyone, and then you also set it to someone specific. Will that specific ride and being everyone?
Yes, because what will happen is it was smart enough to do it beforehand because I went too fast. So you'll see here how it still has everyone else because it's like it's still recognizing that one person. So that's how it's like capable of checking that out. And the other thing that you'll note is we mentioned the student view earlier. If you ever have a question about, like, does this particular student have this, I would encourage you to reach out to that individual student to be like, hey, verify that you're good to go for this if you ever have any questions about this. Okay, so that's assignment. That's how you're able to handle all that stuff. That's how you're able to ensure that instructors and that's how you're able to ensure that individual students have all this information. Yes, please.
This might be like uber specific.
No, please.
But extra credit.
Yes.
How do you put that in points wise?
Oh, I love this question. This is my favorite gradebook question. You have no, so there are literal like massive conversations between Canvas schools to be like, what is the best way to handle extra credit? I'm gonna get to that in just a second because that ties in really well with assignment groups. So let's actually go ahead and start talking about assignment groups and how they work. So you'll recall, one of the things that I did was I made the Module 2 assignment group when I was making that assignment. So you'll see here now, we have on assignments, we have Module 2, and then we have just general assignments. And for right now, the course is being told that we're just calculating final grade solely on points. We're only worried about points, which is a perfectly valid way to handle how a course works. That's totally fine. So to kind of get a little bit into the nitty-gritty of this, a course is essentially set up in two different ways. You have either the setup where you have a syllabus and points, and you're going to match those points word for word to make sure that like everything adds up the way that it should. So for example, right now in this particular course, there are 300 total points, and that might be fine. It might be a situation where every single assignment is handled and calculated to have equal weight to the final grade. So this is, if this is how the syllabus is set up and this is how it's matching, that's perfectly valid. However, let's say that this is a situation where actually Module 2 is only supposed to be worth 20% of the overall grade, and everything else is supposed to be the remaining 80%. Well, how do we make that happen? Well, this is where you're able to utilize something called assignment weight groups. And to get there, you have to first go to assignments. So right now we're on the assignments page. And then from here, you have to click on the vertical ellipses here, and you'll see this option here called assignment groups weight. We're going to then select weight final grade based on assignment, and this is where you're able to tell this situation, okay, this is supposed to be worth 20%, so we'll enter the 20%, and then the rest is supposed to be worth 80%, and then we'll save. Now, question about extra credit, because this is a thing that gets really complicated really fast when you're like, okay, I'm using assignment group, I'm assuming using assignment weights. How do I make it so that I don't have a situation where people are actually being penalized for doing extra credit, which is oftentimes the case? So one of the things that you're capable of doing inside of Canvas that is really unintuitive, but you're capable of making it work, is you can make assignments worth 0 points. And from there, you're able to still give points on assignments that are 0 points. What occurs is that even though that is a 0-point assignment, what is occurring in the math is it's making it so that the total overall point value of a particular assignment weight category, is not increasing its subtotal. So for example, right now inside of assignments, there are 200 total points. If I were to make a brand new assignment and call it extra credit, I would be best serving my students if I made it so that the extra credit was a 0-point assignment. Because what would occur is it would maintain the 200 total points in that subcategory while also still being capable of awarding extra credit points to that student. So let's say, for example, I make that 0 credit point and I award that student 10 extra credit points for that work. So what would occur is, let's say they got an 80 and an 80. So they got 160 out of 200, but they did the extra credit, get an additional 10. Now it's 170 out of 200. So that's how it will calculate, and that's how it will make it so a situation where you don't penalize students for not doing the extra credit, or worse, not doing well in the extra credit. Let's say they only get 2 points out of 10. All of a sudden now, if you did the math incorrectly, it would be, now they have 162 out of 210, and they have a worse grade. It's just like, oh, that's awful. You don't want that to occur. So that's how you're capable of doing assignment weights, weighted groups, and how you're able to manage and work with all this information. Thank you for that question. By the way, also encourage this. I'm the type of presenter where if there's questions you have in the moment, and I love that you two did this, please ask those questions, because this is one of those things where it's just like, what the heck is going on? Please, in the back.
Thank you. So once you make it a 0 assignment, how do you add, say, 10 points?
Excellent question. So here, I'll demonstrate how it works. So for example, let's go ahead. I'm going to make the 0-point assignment extra credits. I'm going to say it's due whenever. Save and publish. And you'll see, like, okay, it's just there now. And this is actually a wonderful segue. So if I go to grades now, you will now see that there is this extra credit assignment. It's in the grade book. And I can just add 10 points. And now it'll be 10 over 0. And what would occur is, in that person's final grade calculations, after I calculate more stuff, it will add that information in to the final grade. Right now, it's not going to demonstrate it because of various reasons that I'm going to get into in just a sec. But what would occur is that 10 points should eventually translate and work its way back into the assignment. Okay, so here we are inside of the gradebook. This is going to be either your favorite or least favorite, or probably just, I'm doing this for, I'm a TA, I got to do this anyway type of work. So I mentioned filters and how they can be incredibly useful and helpful to you. So I want to just point out a few things. Number one, this is how you're able to look for individual students. Let's say you get an email from such and such student and you're just like, hey, I did X, Y, and Z. Can you please look at my assignment? Instead of scrolling through an entirely huge spreadsheet, you can simply look for that particular student. Other things are the ability to filter by module. So let's say you're, as Maria mentioned, you are in an assignment, you're in a course where it's like broken up by weeks or broken up by units, and you only want to grade unit 1, unit 2, you can easily be like, okay, I just want to go to module week 1 and just show what's in week 1. And so that way what will occur is it'll only show that information. Okay. Other things, the ability to search for specific assignments. So if you're just like, I'm only looking for this particular assignment, that's all I want to care about right now, that's a way to help yourself out and make sure everything works the way that it should. So now let's talk about how Gradebook calculates information by default. So it's important to note that I'm going to be talking about the way that you will be looking at a gradebook the very first time that it's being touched, because there are things that you can do that will change what I am about to tell you. And I will mention those in just a second. So by default, you'll notice that there are these little dashes next to, in a particular student's cell. What that dash is, it is a null value. It is not 0. It is not by default calculated as 0. Rather, it is simply a way for the system to know I am expecting work, there's currently nothing here, or rather more specifically, there's nothing graded. So, for example, Natalie Baker in this TA test assignment that we just made has nothing there. But let's say that Natalie actually went ahead and did her work, and they did an excellent job and got a 100. Okay, so now what will occur is that will start calculating at the end there. You'll see the 100%, and that person now has a grade in that location. Now, here's another important thing to note about the way that this operates. The moment that you enter a value into any of these cells, you can no longer revert it to null. So let's say, for example, you accidentally put in the wrong grade for something. Like, let's say I actually I put the 100 into Rebecca's grade instead. You can no longer, you used to be able to go ahead and enter this and like just put the dash back in there to give a null value back. You'll notice that I got this little thing, you've entered it invalid grade, please check. You can't reset back to null anymore. It used to be something that you were able to do, but you can't do anymore, which stinks. So when you are utilizing the gradebook, you need to make sure that you are being careful about where you enter grades, which is why oftentimes you are not going to be entering or inputting grades in this particular way that I just did, because it is both volatile and the potential for mistakes are high. Rather, the way that you oftentimes should be utilizing gradebook is via the speed grader function. What is the speed grader function? So you'll notice here in the little cells that you'll have this little paper icon with a little exclamation point in the bottom. This is the system telling you you have a submission from a student that you have yet to grade. So let's go ahead and click on this, and it will take us to this page here. And we are just going to go to Speed Grader for this particular assignment. And there's a few things that you'll be able to do inside of here. First of which is you were able to see the specific file that they sent. So this is a great way to verify that they send the correct file type. I specifically made sure that this was a CSV that got sent because the system does not read CSVs very well. You can see the formatting is all off. And the other reason why this is important is because this is also a quick and easy way for you to be able to enter grades for a particular student. Now, if you needed to say like, hey, this is incorrect, you can simply say the following. Like, let's say, give them a 0, and then comments for this attempt. You could be like, please resubmit, and then hit submit. And this is a way for them, because if you remember back when we were editing this particular assignment, we gave them unlimited attempts. They themselves will be able to go back into this work, resubmit the assignment, and then what would occur is up here where it says submitted, this would change into a drop-down menu where you would be able to see the different attempts, and it defaults to the last submitted attempt. So when you go back here, if they tell you like, hey, I resubmitted my work, you can go back here and you will see that, hey, okay, we're good to go. Let's regrade this, let's redo this. Because what would happen is if we go back to the gradebook, you'll see that this person currently has a 0, but if we were to resubmit that attempt, it would overwrite the 0 and give them whatever that new grade is. So with all that in mind, that's a quick and easy way for you to be able to see all that information really, really fast. I just want to demonstrate some of the tools that you have inside of a particular, inside a SpeedGrader, including probably most useful, the ability to just leave point comments in particular areas, the ability to draw boxes in the areas of just like, hey, this is something I wanted to leave you a comment on, this is what I want you to do. This is probably, in my opinion, the most effective form of feedback for a particular student. It also very much demonstrates that you as TAs are giving appropriate time to the work that you're doing, because it's probably the easiest way to demonstrate to your professor, no, look at all these comments I have made in their papers. They are definitely trying their best. So with that in mind, and being mindful of time as well, just go back and verify that I did everything that we said we'd do. Where are you? There we go. Turn it in. I don't think I need to necessarily go deep into Turnitin today. I'm quite certain that most of you are very familiar with Turnitin. I saw a lot of people smile and laugh when I mentioned Turnitin. I will simply say, whenever I talk about Turnitin, the number one thing I always say is that percentage matching is not necessarily always a silver bullet in terms of this is something that is clearly not original work. Always make sure you go in and verify what's happening here. I can't tell you the number of times the software has failed to identify block quotes, for example, and suddenly 70% of a paper is being quoted as unoriginal. There's always a lot of nuance with regards to how Turnitin can work, but sometimes you get just very clear cases of plagiarism. So just make sure whenever you go and you look through that information that you do indeed verify what it's telling you the sources are. And with that, I think I demonstrated how things are calculated. Yes, question.
This might also be specific. With Turnitin, it will tell you like submitted by University of Maryland student in the past.
Correct.
Is there any way to like find out if that student was the student, like the same student, or if they took another student's work?
Excellent question. So, also not hyper-specific, but one of the things that Turnitin does for the purposes of FERPA is if the paper, specifically in your example, is from a previous University of Maryland student, oftentimes one of two things occurs based on the date of when it actually was submitted. Either you will be able to go and see directly that submission at a certain point. There will be a hyperlink that will take you directly to where that was, and you'll be able to verify like who exactly did this, who exactly wrote this, or if it's given enough time, it'll simply say like from a student. Oftentimes, the other thing you'll see is like submitted from X university, and that will always be a case of you not being able to see who precisely that person is because of FERPA. So if for some reason you believe you need to know who that is, there are methods with which to work with the university to be like, hey, I would like to submit a form in order to learn more about this particular incident of plagiarism because I have reason to believe that this particular student did X, Y, or Z. It has to go through a more formalized process, but there are levers to pull in order to learn more about instances like that. Okay. Yes?
I was told that Turnitin can also check for CPI or not.
Excellent question. Okay, so it can. We don't have that turned on for a variety of reasons. And this is a bit of a hobby horse of mine, so I apologize if I go off on this. Right now, Turnitin's AI detection is lacking. It's not very good. There's a couple of things that are especially egregious about it. Number one, if a paper's length is either too short or too long, it's actually not even close to being capable of detecting if AI was utilized in it. Moreover, the other thing is there's been a lot of things with regards to AI detection that are really difficult that I would say we don't necessarily have good policy on. Like, for example, if a paper is being is claimed as being AI generated, what exactly is the consequences of that? We don't necessarily have like the differences between like saying like I believe that this was plagiarized when you can literally go back and see the original work, far more clear cut and understanding in terms of like what happened here. Because as of right now, there's no way for us to 100% verify that a student AI generated a paper. It can be a little disastrous. There's actually a lot of literature in higher ed at the moment with regards to the uncertainty with which we're handling this and like where exactly we go from here, because AI generation in original work is a big problem. But as of right now, we don't have the AI detector turned on for Turnitin, mostly because of the reasons I just stated. Yes, please. Yeah.
You mentioned FERPA,
Yes.
and we had been talking within the school about whether or not FERPA training is required for all TAs. I don't really feel like we got a solid answer.
I'm kind of surprised you guys aren't FERPA trained, to be honest.
Well,
I'm sorry.
don't be surprised. There's nothing in the system that stops us from putting a TA on a course. Like when I asked graduate assistants to assist, it won't let me until they do the purpose.
Okay.
But in Elms, it's not that way. I can add them continuously and they don't require them to be purpose. So there's nothing in our system. Registrar would call in a couple people, and the answer we kept getting is, it's up to you guys. And I was like, no, they either need to be FERPA trained or not.
Yeah.
And so we need someone, but Elms doesn't do anything that stops us from putting them on these courses without being FERPA trained. So there's no stop gate like there is.
The thing I'll say is oftentimes, and Marianne, please correct me if I'm wrong, the stopgap, as I always understood it, and I'm going to preface this with I've only been here a year, is whenever an instructor or a TA gets added to a course, it should only be done through Teacher Collect, which is the system that should have that gap, that stopgap of like this person is or is not FERPA trained. But also, I'm curious how you're adding people in Elms directly because that permission shouldn't be capable.
Sam, can you answer? I don't know. I don't know
We,
what.
the two ways for the EMT, like, I mean, as she said, there's no stop gate to say, hey, you can do this. So it also go to CES, going to CES to add TAs as well. And there's nothing there to say, well, you can prevent you.
Okay. Okay.
That's tell me how you guys do it on that end.
Yeah, to add to that, because there are two ways, which is through department scheduler, they go through Teacher Collect, that goes into SIS. That's the main way that TA should be added in there. The one for EMT is only included was because if they wanted to be added to a previous course so that they can see what it was, how that course was taught and see information. But there is no policy saying like, hey, you have to do this or this, but maybe when you're having your TAs added, say, hey, they need to go through department scheduler. That way you can keep, go through FERPA.
But I know what Mary thinks. She's a scheduler, right? I know she's aware of it.
But I don't know how she could verify that they've done FERPA training. So it seems like we would need to develop an internal system.
Yeah.
Because the university doesn't have anything in place like it does with SIS.
Yeah.
Giving people SIS access.
I'll do that. So again, make sure you complete your statement of mutual expectations into your TA. You fill out that form, it will take you to the area to upload your first certificate. Do that by September 9 schedule adjustment, and if not, then I will go to IT and be like, remove their access until you do your.
So we'll just have to manually.
Yeah.
It's weird that there's not a tracking system for that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that disconnect. There's IT security, and the security defend your shell thing.
Yep.
And when they mention FERPA, they never plug into it.
Yeah, that's.
There's that disconnect. So something we all have to work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good to know. All right, another loophole to close.
Just wanted to add here, we included typically all the information that we talked about, but in just a one pager that has all the links and guides for announcements, assignments, grading, student view, and the different tools that you're most likely to use. I'm just going to click on it so you can see it a little bit bigger. Everything that we just talked about, just a one pager, including some resources at the bottom for all the different instructional technology that we have at University of Maryland, and any instructional technology workshops. TLTC and DIT, Division of IT, we both do workshops, so you'll see both of them, those workshops on there. And then we've included like where you want, if you need to get some technical support as well. And last thing, again, if you still have any questions, just let us know. And also if you can complete this evaluation for us, thank you. We have the QR code or the link